It's been raining for almost 7 days straight here at the rugged homestead, but finally the skies look like they're clearing up. The weather's turned nice, so I wanted to give an update on my grapevines. Last year I planted the grapevines, and as you may recall, this one is my Niagara, and it had a little problem getting started, but after a while it took off, and we had 3 vines sprout up, and I didn't trim anything off, and I just let them grow, and now this year they're leafing out fine, and it looks like we might be getting some grapes this year. So the vines are covered in these baby grapes, and I'm really hopeful that we're going to get a nice harvest this year of grapes. Same with the red Reliance. This is a seedless one, the Reliance, and it too has grapes forming all over. So this should be a really nice harvest, and as I be training them up over the pergola, and I'm going to be putting some more 2x2s across the top at every foot, and that way it'll give it a greater support than these 2-foot spaces in between the joists. But what I wanted to show you is what I'm doing to propagate more grapes. I'm using a technique that's called stool layering. I got this idea from a great channel, Edible Acres. Really ought to check them out if you don't already subscribe to them. He's got a permaculture nursery in upstate New York by Ithaca, New York, and he's got some great tips on how to propagate your own plants. One of the ones that he talks about is stool layering. Now, typically with stool layering, you would have a shrub. This is a blueberry, but you'd have a shrub, and then you'd mound up dirt or whatever around the stalks that come up out of the shrub, and then those stalks end up, that are underground, end up rooting, and then you can have extra plants from that. Well, he says with a vining crop like grapes, you could do a similar thing. As I mentioned, I had 3 vines growing. Right now, this is just 2 here, because I've got this one here, and then this one, which I've wrapped around the post of the pergola. So the third one was growing up on this side of the post, and what I did was I made a trench in the ground here, right along the edge here, made a trench, and then I laid down that vine, and you can see it comes down along here, and then just laid it right along. And then what I did was, wherever the new growth came out of the old growth, here I'll show you on this vine, like at this leaf joint, you've got the old growth here from last year, and then you've got the new growth coming out. Well, wherever these are buried, these joints are buried, the nodes, you'll get roots to form. So I've covered the vine with well-rotted compost that I had from last year, and he says you can use sawdust and things like that, and then throughout the year, each of these leaves, these branches, will actually turn into a vine. And it was actually that long when I planted it, just about. But they'll start, each of them will start to grow. And I'll end up putting some fencing along here so that they'll have something to attach to as they grow up. But right now, it's still thriving, even though I've buried it in the ground. I did it about 4 days ago. And they looked a little wilted the first day, but now they've bounced back. It probably hasn't hurt that it's been raining like crazy for the past week. And as they grow, I'll add more compost over the vines. And at the end of the season, I'll pull back the compost, and all these vines should then have roots growing, and I can cut them and have individual grapevines that I'll then be able to plant in other areas. So I had read that I should have initially just taken my main vine here and trimmed off all the others and just grew it in a central leader all the way up until I got to the top, and then from up there, then it would be able to branch out. But I didn't do that. And basically, because it was the first year, I didn't want to inhibit its growth. And maybe I should have, but now I've gotten a chance to use one of those vines to propagate more. What I plan to do with the second vine here is actually wrap it around the post in the opposite direction going up. I'm just letting it grow up a little bit more so that it'll be able to reach up and then over the top before I start wrapping it around. On the Reliance grape, I never did get a second shoot. It was funny because this one was a vigorous grower from the beginning, and it made it all the way up to the top prior to the other one even getting like halfway. But then all of a sudden the Niagara started growing extra shoots, and it started taking off. So by the end of the season, they were both about the same, except this one only had the one vine and the other one had three. But we got some really strong growth happening in here. These look like really nice, thick vines growing. And I'm afraid I may end up having to eventually cut them off. I might do that at the end of this season. I do want to get some grape production, so I want to get as much as I can this year. Perhaps a little greedy at the expense of the plant, but next year, after I've had a taste of grapes, then I can do what's perhaps necessary. I'm also doing the form of it with my blackberries, my thornless blackberries. Here it's called tip layering. Basically, you take one of the branches of your blackberry bush and you tip it down so that part of it is buried in the ground, and wherever it's buried, roots will form there. And at the end of the season, you'll be able to cut the branch off and you'll have a complete separate bush. I'm doing this in two places. The other one is over here, and that's only because those are the two longest branches that I have on these shrubs. Okay, this was just a quick video just to show what I was doing with the grapes and how I'm going to try and propagate more grapes from this one vine. And hopefully I'll end up with a dozen more, and I can plant a few around the yard and perhaps give the rest away. All right, if you like what you see, give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel if you'd already do so, and ring that alarm bell, and that way you'll be notified right away when videos like this are posted. And check us out on Facebook, where I regularly update how I'm turning my suburban home into a homestead. Okay, thanks for watching.